All right.
All right.
You ready? How we doing, Michael? We ready? Yeah. Okay, well, I say we start. What do you think?
I am all for it.
Oh, shoot. Hold on. Nope. We can start. That was a calendar reminder of this.
Of this?
Yeah. So that's
Good
fun.
thing you got reminded of it.
Woo!
That means mine's probably going off over there right now.
About to not do it. All right.
How is that?
Well, what?
There's like a rumbling, isn't there? Yeah. Is that your stomach?
No, it's not.
Now your mom's texting you?
Yeah, my mom's texting me.
Should you get that?
No, it's okay. I will call her once we are done.
Okay.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Big Idea Podcast. My name is Eric Bramlett. I am joined by
Tammy Melchien.
Tammy. How you doing today?
Pretty good.
I really like the ensemble. It's
Thank
working.
you. Thank you.
Yeah, new combo?
Not new clothes, just new
arrangement.
New arrangement.
Yeah, that's good. That's a new combination.
Happens when
combination.
the black shirt's in the laundry.
No, that's all right. That's all right. We are here to talk about Explore God, and this is part 2. Mm-hmm. This is the second podcast focusing on the weeks of Explore God. Total weeks, we're talking about 7 weeks, right?
Yes.
7-week series. This week, and this podcast will be focusing in on weeks 4 through 7. Mm-hmm. And so,
Again,
Tammy...
Super light topics.
Yeah, just like walks in the park, lots of like kind of feel good stuff about like, yeah, Jesus is my friend. Like, no problem. I don't have any hard questions.
Rainbows and puppies.
Yeah, exactly. So tell us a little bit, just remind us of what Explore God is trying to accomplish just kind of overall and where we're headed with the series.
Explore God is a citywide initiative, hundreds of churches across Chicagoland. Maybe if you've been driving around, I've seen a couple of the LED,
the
digital billboards
yeah.
advertising it. It keeps showing up in my Facebook feed. I know I haven't heard that in other people, so somehow I'm the target audience for Explore God.
They just know that you need it.
I think I did like one of the posts, so that probably...
Yeah, that tipped them off.
Yeah, so hopefully tons of people that are curious or maybe have questions or are game to explore God show up for the series. And so during the series, we're tackling 7 big questions, and we've already done the first 3, and now we're going to do the last 4.
All right, sounds good. So let's talk about week 4, and our question here is Christianity too narrow?
Am I supposed to know the answer to that?
I don't know. I'm just saying that's the question.
Yes, we're going to look at that question, and obviously this is, I think, an extremely relevant question to our culture. You can see on the map even there we have the little coexist sign where a lot of people, kind of want to just say, pick your own way, just be nice and kind.
Whatever works for you.
Works for you. Yeah. And so in this message we're planning to tackle the fact that a lot of people... kind of go, and even, I forget the exact statistics, but even quite a large percentage of professing Christians would say, oh no, there's many ways to eternal life. There's many ways to salvation. And while we might want to believe that, the reality is it's just not true. And so, to demonstrate some of how you can't be like every way is the same. We may look at some of the world religions and the different things that they believe about Jesus, because they are very all over the map, different beliefs about Jesus. And central to Christianity is this belief that Jesus is God and he is the only way. That is the claim that Jesus made and that the early Christian community echoed. But again, that's where a lot of times it can turn people off. That's too narrow. That's too narrow. But part of what we want to demonstrate in this message is that, the reality is the message of Christianity is narrow, but it is not exclusive. It's actually the most inclusive message, because whereas in every other world religion, it's about what you do to get in, what you do to be accepted, what you do to be worthy. Christianity is the one world religion that says it's not about what you do, it's about what's already been done for you, and that is what Jesus has done for us is actually open to every single person. And so it is radically inclusive in a way that I think many times people don't realize.
Yeah, and I think I mean in the graphs we've got this in the map where
Ooh,
it says
pulling an old word.
It's old school. Where it says Christianity is unique. It's the only religion where God says, "I'll come and get you," as opposed to work your way to me. And I think that's super, super important.
Which is interesting because we haven't here, we might consider closing with the story of the prodigal son, because I don't know all the details of this, but I don't know if you know that there's actually a Buddhist version of that story.
Oh, really?
And it's basically, I mean, you can tell it's the same story, but what happens is in the Buddhist version of it, the son comes back and he has to work for 20 years shoveling excrement on his father's farm until he wins his way back into his father's good graces. And so it's like you can so clearly
Right, yeah.
see the dichotomy there of like what you have to do versus the father who runs and embraces you.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so that I
Big
think we may
difference.
use that in the message.
Yeah, and in that respect, then you really are turning the phrase of "is Christianity too narrow" on its head and saying, no, it's actually it's for everyone. I
Yeah.
mean, it is
Yeah.
for everyone because God is after everyone.
Yeah.
He wants all of us. All right, well, that sounds like an easy question to answer in 60 minutes. So
25.
yeah, 25 minutes talk. Good. So then we move on to week 5, and we're not pulling any punches. Is Jesus really God? And when we phrase that, I mean, I hope that we really emphasize the
really?
Yeah, because I want it to really
We
feel
didn't
like,
pick the questions.
is Jesus really God? Yeah, I want to move up.
It is
there.
interesting that I was just spending some time looking at this one and preparing for our brainstorm this week, and I didn't recognize the stats. I think these were Barna stats that were quoted, that 92% of Americans believe in the historical Jesus, that Jesus really was a person who lived. And that, honestly, for me, I was like, oh, I mean, there's tons of evidence for that, but I
Right.
was kind of like surprised in a way to hear that like Barna's conclusion really is there's not really a debate over that.
Right.
But the debate comes in as then, okay, but who was Jesus? And I think, I can't remember off the top of my head, it's like slightly over half of people believe that he was God. But then like 29% believe that he was just a good moral teacher.
Significant drop off there.
And about
yeah.
18% are not sure.
Yeah.
And so, we're looking at, and if those stats are accurate in the Chicago area, you're looking at probably half people that think he is, half people that don't. And so I think in this message, again, this is a guide, so I think, I don't know if we'll exactly go here, but I mean, again, one of the things you have to, if you're wrestling with that, if you believe in the historical Jesus and believe, you kind of have to look, okay, well, what did the historical Jesus do and say? And, Jesus himself certainly declared that he was equal with the Father. And so there was a self-declaration there. I think there's also, I have it as resurrection here, but I think maybe even a way to talk about it is a self-prediction. Mm-hmm. Like I almost think we might go self-declaration, self-prediction. Like he said, he said it cryptically, but
Right.
but he said that he was going
This is gonna happen,
body
yeah.
would destroy, and then 3 days later, it would raise again, and then the we might draw some from Andy Stanley. The evidence for the resurrection is there's a lot of stuff that's hard to explain away from that as well. And so, in some ways, I think in this talk, helping us see you're not like in left field if you
Right.
believe that Jesus is really God, that there's a lot of solid kind of argument to rest on there. But I think we also might, go to the C.S. Lewis stuff. At the end of the day, everyone has to decide, and he's either a liar or he was a lunatic or he's Lord.
Yeah.
And where I'm hoping we land this talk is, and this big idea is, at the end of the day, every single person has to decide what they believe about Jesus. And it could lead us into a good finding your way back to God ask, which I think we're planning for that. Because 2 weeks from this week is the next all-church baptism. And so I
Gotcha.
think it's a perfect time for us to say,
Yeah. Now's the time,
have
yeah.
some kind of way to respond to
Yeah.
that.
No, that's great, and I think too, again, the quote that you've got here of, is it Aquinas?
I think so,
Aquinas?
yes.
If the incarnation did not really happen, then an even more unbelievable miracle happened, the conversion of the world by the biggest lie in history. And he goes on. But it's like, I mean, that's where you're really trying to lay out, I mean, the apologetics of this service, and just saying, if it's not true, then there was a different miracle of
it's almost
overwhelming proportions.
As hard, if not harder, to prove Jesus wasn't God.
Yeah.
And then how do you explain all of this stuff?
Right. Well, I mean, and I mean, I think too, figuring out what that finding your way back to God ask will be important, because if the number is 50% who believe that he is God, that doesn't necessarily automatically translate into Christ following. That's just
it's
kind
belief.
of like,
Yeah.
And so either way, I mean, the audience, even if the audience is kind of coming into this going, yeah, but I believe, still getting to that point of saying, cross that line, figure out what that next step is in following him, and being in tune with this belief will be big.
That's good.
All right.
Do you notice there I was getting a little too comfortable in these chairs with backs?
Yeah, we're starting to feel a little like, I wonder when Eric's going to be done.
We have much nicer chairs today than the little
than
rickety stools that I always think I'm going to lose my leg
and
on,
that's going to be a great episode when that finally happens. Week 6.
Is the Bible reliable?
Is the Bible reliable? I don't feel like you ask that question the same way that you do. Really?
Is the Bible really reliable?
Is the Bible reliable? It's just, is the Bible reliable?
I'm going to say yes.
Okay, but why and how, and why would we make such assertions on a Sunday?
You need to come on February 17th.
Okay, well, I'll mark my calendar.
Yes, and so, we did, I think we did a message called Can I Trust the Bible? Mm-hmm. Can't remember.
Sounds hauntingly
Everything's
familiar.
just a blur. I feel like it might have even just been in the Reason series.
Probably. I bet it was the Reasons.
I probably have it on here.
We'll pretend that that's what it was.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I have it on here. Can I Trust the Bible? So, we may be able to draw some from that already. But yeah, like one of the things that you see the first part on the map there, I can't remember where we got this from, but the Bible is unique because of its circulation. Like no other book has been published and continues to be published, a bestseller like that, because of its translation, the number of different languages. It's unique because of its preservation. It's like, think about it, the Bible has survived so many attempts to discredit it. And so like it is so unique in those ways. But can we trust it? And so again, we'll probably in this message go a lot with some of the arguments of, compared to other ancient literature, there is far more to assert that the Bible is accurate, that it's reliable. And then I think where we'll land on this one is like the third thing, they're relevant, because really when you're asking, is the Bible reliable? Really one of the best ways to answer that question is to rely on it and see what happens.
Right, yeah.
Yeah,
like, you tell me.
Yeah, yeah, like live according to the principles, according to what Jesus modeled and taught for us. Jesus himself there in John 7 said, anyone who chooses to do the will of God will find out whether my teaching comes from God or whether I speak on my own. In essence, he was saying, do you really want to find out if this teaching is from God? Well, live it out and see what happens. And so, I don't know, I feel like there's some kind of challenge there.
Totally. And I think, you mentioned this too, you've got Andy Stanley's talking about the Bible and just the fact that early Christ followers didn't have the text the way that we have it.
Yeah.
But they still believed. And so in a way, this almost becomes a part two. When someone's asking the question, is the Bible reliable? Often, it's like a redirect to the question about Jesus being Lord. Yeah. Or, how do I, if I can refute some of this, then does it throw all of it out? That, those kind of questions.
Yeah, and I think we have in there, we might want to draw some of it without getting all the controversial stuff that...
Right, yeah.
Because I don't, again, not that we can, if we're probably never upsetting people, we're probably not doing it right, but yeah, like, Andy Stanley's big argument is for the first however many centuries, they didn't have, and it's really not until the inventing of the printing press that people
Right.
individually really had, and yet
Right.
yet people were followers of Jesus. And so sometimes we hold the Bible up almost like an idol, or like
Yeah.
like we
A
worship
litmus test.
we worship the
Yeah.
Bible, but really,
Right.
I think it would be important for us to have the proper perspective on that. So,
Yeah, no, that's good. All right, so then we're ready for the big wrap up, week 7.
ooh, can I know God personally?
Can I know God
And
personally?
this is all church
All
baptisms.
church baptisms. What a great way to end the series. Super excited about
Yes. And out of all the questions, this maybe is the one that most, kind of people that are not Christ followers are probably not asking.
that. Sure.
But I think it's a great way to end the series, especially if people started with us in the beginning, or come a long way. I mean, I think hopefully by week 7 we've earned some kind of trust and credibility
Yeah.
that this really is a message leading people to make a commitment to Jesus. And so there's a previous message. One of our partner churches in North Carolina did the Explore God City when they did it there in their city. And so I have some manuscripts from them. It's funny because it's a New Thing church, so some of their manuscripts really just look a lot like our Reasons manuscripts.
Right.
But in this one in particular, there's a link. I don't know if that link always translates into the
It does in
official
the
one.
doc, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But they did this thing
I can't,
with,
like, for example, I can't press it
no,
right
but
now.
I meant like sometimes when Sherry makes this look pretty, I think we lose some of the links.
Oh,
So I got to
that's
figure that
possible.
out. But they did this thing with like scales that I think might be interesting for us to think of a creative way to use this, where it's kind of like we live most of our life going, oh, I did this wrong, so now I got to balance it out.
Sure.
So, these first couple, I drive too fast and get a ticket, so I got to pay the ticket,
Right.
and that balances things out. But we often approach relationship. I yelled at my kids this morning, and so I'm going to take them for ice cream.
Right. Balance it out.
Yeah, kind of balance that out. And, just bringing out how we often probably even subconsciously do this. What do I have to do to balance things out, to undo what I just did? And many of us bring that into our relationship with God. I'm not a good Christian. I didn't go to church or something like this. And so
Right.
what am I going to, and we think about like some of the things that we do for God as a way to kind of
Even the scales.
balancing it
yeah.
out. And a lot of times we think we have to be perfect, or, when we realize we can't, like we're constantly trying to do good things to try to balance out the things we do wrong. And I kind of like how we just had the line in there. So no wonder why we're all so tired. But, using that scale imagery, that's where like what we're really getting wrong in that is that we think God works the way that we do. And, they had a line in the talk from the New Thing Church: if you've walked away from a God who demanded perfection, good, because that's not the real God. And to recognize that the God that the real God is the God who saw this scale, and Jesus came and just knocked it over. And he did for us. And so this message is leading us to, the reason Jesus came is because God wants to know us personally. He wanted to make a way for us to find our way back to him and to know him. And so stop getting so busy and playing the scale game,
Right.
and just, find your way back to God, come back to God, and, receive the forgiveness that he wants to give you, receive the purpose that he wants to give you, receive the hope that he wants to give you. And so this will lead into our all church baptism.
Oh, that's great.
Moment.
I love it. I think this one is also really, really good for kind of we tend to have like a high population of post-Catholic experiences where God has been a part of lives, but maybe not this relational God, in this way. And I think that seems to be an aha that comes out of
And
that.
even, one of my friends who grew up Catholic, she used to tell me that they taught her that everybody's got a grace jar, and God fills it up this much, but then you have to fill it up the rest of the way. And it's like that again, whether you're Catholic or not, like grew up Catholic or not, but that clouds so much of our thinking. It's kind of like, yeah, Jesus did that for me, but what do I got to do?
Right, and obviously that's not exclusive to
not
a
at
Catholic upbringing, but it definitely points to this idea that the breakthrough for many people is understanding that this isn't a transaction or a safety or like so that God won't be mad, I will do this, but that there really is this relationship that He is eager to foster in us.
And I love the passage in Revelation 3:20, this image of Jesus standing at the door and knocking, and He wants to come in and sit down with us, and I mean, that's kind of like the.
Right.
It's
But
like
it reminds me of the paintings. Have you seen the paintings that don't have a doorknob?
oh yeah, because you have to open it from the inside.
Right, because Jesus can't figure out how can I open a door with no knob. I'm Jesus, but I don't know. How does that work?
I mean,
What's the
there's stories
technology?
of me just going
It's like
through locked
the
doors.
worst house built in the history of fake houses. All right, well, I kind of went off in a different place there. I know we should use it, but let's
the
put
scripture, but not the picture.
use the scripture. But if we use a picture, let's put a doorknob there. It's not, I mean, we get it. He's knocking because he's courteous, not because he can't find the doorknob.
Can't figure out the doorknob.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Different thing. We'll deal with that.
You had a really
offline.
angsty childhood, didn't you?
No, I don't think it was that angsty. I just think that I don't know. I questioned things at different parts of my life, and that was a recent development.
Maybe that should be the 8th question of the
The
series.
8th
Why
question
isn't there a
is,
doorknob?
why isn't there a doorknob? Someone tell me.
All right, I think we've gone far enough.
Clearly, we've gone far enough. Now, one question about that week 7, with it being all church baptisms, does that then fit into that category of spontaneous baptisms,
Yes.
where a portion of this talk will have
the whole
those specific
big questions,
trying to break away those barriers so that people would step forward and
That
say
is
yes.
true. This is one of the 2 times a year where we really do that.
Very good.
That big baptism
Very
spiel
good.
as part of it.
All right, so make a note of that, and we're looking forward to this series. I think it's going to be fantastic, and I look forward to seeing how God works.
It's so short too.
Yeah,
it's only 7.
It's only 7 weeks. I mean, after doing 11 of Turn the Page, it's super short. And I love the graphic. I mean, these fonts that they've chosen for Explore God, I mean, they are gorgeous. So wait until you see them. I think you're going to love them.
Serious?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, that wraps up our time here with the Big Idea Podcast. And this has been Tammy and Eric. And anything left you want to say?
No.
Okay. All right. So long, everybody.